Welcome to our December newsletter and webcast, where this month we're joined by a familiar guest who we've had on before once, and we're going to go over a trip that we went on together last month. Natasha Stanishevsky, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. I'm excited to relive our fantastic trip.
Absolutely, lots of great stuff to relive. We had an amazing trip. So we went down there on November 1st, went down with a group of 19 people total, and had a great 5-day, 5-night visit to Casa de Campo, one of my favorite destinations in the world. And this year, I went down there for the first time in a while, and it's the first time I got to spend time staying in a villa. And so we stayed in 3 villas as part of the group. And so explain to everybody what the villa experience is like.
Well, I feel like what we learned is that the villa experience was a little bit different depending on which villa you stayed in, right? We ended up splitting into 2, and one was this beautiful, modern, huge villa. Ours, the one that you and I stayed in, was just as awesome, but just a little bit older, a little bit smaller. It had more character, in my opinion. And I think it was better than the other one, actually. I think we got lucky just because I think the word cozy kept coming up. Like when we sat around the pool and stuff, it was a little bit more intimate somehow. And I don't know, I loved it. I thought there was, the way the layout was, like, gave everybody kind of privacy. Like the rooms were sort of all separate. The pool was big enough that you could, if you didn't want to talk to anybody, you could go in the corner sort of on one side and just like have some alone time. But like the kitchen was fabulous, the dining room, the fact that we ate outside that one night was really fun. It was perfect. I loved our little villa. I was a little apprehensive at first, staying with people that you don't know anything about, but in the end, it was awesome.
Yeah, we were lucky with a great group of people that went down on the trip. Everybody was easygoing, and and the other thing about the villas is the service you get, right? And we had Gerardo and Mercedes as our 2 as our butler and cleaner, and they were unbelievable, right? And really added to the experience.
Mm-hmm. It was nice to have breakfast there a couple of mornings for sure. And just knowing that there was somebody always kind of around if you had any questions about anything or needed any help, or I don't know, just something extra. There was always somebody there kind of to help you with that. Was cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience. So moving on to the golf, 3 golf courses on the property we've talked about a lot in the past. Tease the Dog, obviously a lot of people know, then Die 4, pretty spectacular, and then the Links golf course. We had a chance to play all 3 of them. So I wanted to get your feedback on all 3 courses separately, and in particular how they play for somebody of your ability, because we had people all different abilities. And of course you got to play with my buddy Darren, who hits the ball country mile, and it plays differently for him than it would for you or I. So explain to us sort of how it played for your game.
I mean, all the courses were tough for sure, but in the end, they were challenging, but nothing that I would shy away from, going forward. I think Teeth of the Dog was actually not as hard maybe as I first thought it was going to be. I thought it was really playable. I thought Die 4 is probably more difficult just because it was longer from what I remember. A lot more sort of hills to get up and down, which can be tough for somebody like me sometimes. The greens were fast, but I think that gave everybody issues, right? Unless you have a short game where you can just like plop your ball on perfectly. There were a lot of balls running off one side and back over the other side, which happens to me at the easiest of courses. So maybe I shouldn't even bring that up. But and then of course the Links, which was, I guess you could say, like the easiest of it, or the most straightforward. It was also good too. It was fun playing that one. It kind of just builds your confidence back up. But I thought all 3 courses were great. And like I said, I mean, Die 4 probably the most difficult for me, but nothing that would stop me from going back. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Teeth the Dog is a very playable golf course, very walkable for one thing, and pretty fair off the tee, and it challenges all around the greens, which is challenging for golfers of all levels. But Die 4 certainly a little more challenging with the elevations. But
Yes.
Which one was your favorite, would you say, out of the three?
I, man, I feel like they were also different. It's hard to pick a favorite. Like obviously the views on Teeth of the Dog, you're just like you're on the ocean, which is kind of, it's hard not to pick that one as your favorite, right? Just because of the
Yeah.
views are so spectacular. But Die For, like I loved being further back and seeing the ocean from far away. And then that, I don't know, was it the River Valley, I guess, that on the other nine was really cool to be about that, right? So,
Yeah.
but I guess if I had to pick my favorite, I would go with Teeth of the Dog.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So moving on to the culinary experience at the resort, and I've been raving about the food ever since I got back because I thought it was a great. All the food at every restaurant was great. We ate at 5 different restaurants for dinners, and then a couple for dinner and for breakfast and lunch, I should say. So explain a little bit about how you felt the dining experience was.
I this sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm not exaggerating. I would give it a 10 out of 10. I think that sometimes you go to these sort of tropical islands or these exotic destinations, and even though you're going to like an amazing resort, you don't always know what the food is going to be like, right? But I thought the food was fantastic. I thought the Mexican restaurant at Die For was one of my favorite. That was really good. The fancier dinner we had, I get like in the lobby that first night was really good. And then also the last night, like the fanciest spot, like they were all delicious. And then even I was thinking the breakfast was so like on point every morning, that buffet, everything from the pancakes to the fresh fruits just was perfect. The service was great. Like, and I like how like, I'm not a big germaphobe, but sometimes buffets, there's food everywhere. Everyone's breathing over the food, obviously, but it was a little bit more covered up this time, which was nice, especially I guess with COVID. I know people are worried about that. But just the quality, just the taste of the food was great, and they literally had everything you wanted. And I just remember the passion cheesecakes that you and I were both crushing.
Had enough of those, yeah.
A few more of those every single night. That should have been a staple because those were amazing. But yeah, the food was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So during the golf, we had caddies, 4 caddies, especially at Teeth the Dog, where they're mandatory. But we also ended up taking them at Die For because they were so good. How did you find the caddy experience at Casa?
The caddies were funny because they obviously really help. Like when they're reading your putts, you want to argue with them sometimes because what you see obviously sometimes is not what they see, and you think you know better. But they knew every single time, almost 99% of the time they were spot on. I thought it was funny because they would get mad at me sometimes if I missed a shot or if I was playing bad. Like they would just walk away shaking their heads in a fun way, of course. But I felt like I was getting shamed sometimes because I wasn't playing very well, but I probably deserved it. However, I think it was the second time I played Teeth of the Dog, second or third, I shot one of my lowest rounds ever. And my caddy, I forget who my caddy was, but he was outstanding. And I nailed so many putts, and I never would have hit any of those putts if it wasn't for him. So I love having the caddies around. I think they're great. I know some people don't, but I think it's super fun when you get the chance to do it.
Yeah, and the caddies we had were long time caddies there, right? They'd been there 20, 25 years. And Jesus, the guy I had who stuck around with me for every round. And I've recommended him to other groups that we've sent since, and he was fantastic. So it was a great experience. And I'm glad we got to take them at Die For as well, because it was well worthwhile up there.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. So we had a busy itinerary when we were there. Obviously golf every day, lots of meals set up and everything, but we had a little bit of time in the afternoon. Sometimes we went out and played golf. Some people played an extra round of golf, but if not, what did you do on your free afternoons to pass the time?
Well, I mean, I love doing things. I love being active and stuff, but I'm also the kind of person that can lie by the pool for 7 days straight and be completely happy doing that. So that is what I did with my free time. We sat by the pool. I remember one afternoon I was there for a good few hours, just kind of relaxing. And then the other free afternoon, down to the beach, kind of doing just the exact same thing. I think there was one day where people rented paddle boards and did all of that, which sounded really fun. I think they loved it, but I was a little bit lazy during my free time and I was either at the pool or at the beach. But both were awesome. It was great to just lie there. And the beach was, I wish we actually had more time because the beach was really nice. It would have been nice to spend more time there. And the bar at the beach, I think, had the best pina coladas. Although the pina coladas were good everywhere. I think the beach, I don't know, but like they had the best blender or something. Theirs were the best. So that's what I did.
Might have just been how you're feeling at the time, so relaxed, right? Things always taste better when you're relaxed.
Maybe. Actually, I think
But
it was the first one I had. So I think the first one hits a little bit different than any of the others, actually. Now that I think about it, the beach was the first time I had one. So that was probably why.
fair enough. But it was good of you to do that research though, and research the pina coladas at each venue and make sure that you knew. So that was taking the job seriously. That's great. So we had a fun match the first day we got there. Me and my buddy Darren and you and Quinn, and the guys took the first match. So you demanded a rematch, and we had a little rematch on the last day, and it went a little bit differently. We played a 9-hole match at Die For, and it was super fun. So tell everybody all about that match.
Well, I think you should be I think this should be a joint thing where we're both telling everybody about the match because it was super fun. And it is unfortunate that we couldn't play a full 18, but it worked out in our favor. Quinn, who was my friend and came along, she caught fire and she was hitting putts like crazy. So we ended up winning the match. I was going to say much to my surprise, but I don't know if I was I wasn't sure. We don't play very competitive golf very often, so I was pretty nervous, but I think she came through. She carried us in the end. So technically, I guess we won. We decided to call it early, but I think another rematch is probably in the cards.
Absolutely, for sure, and that's going to happen. But it was great because we all played well, and Darren and I both played really well, and still lost one up, and so we were happy enough about the match that we were able to play well, and happy to see you guys win. So that was super fun though, and really enjoyed that match. That was a good way to end the week. So for people who are wondering and wanting, we're gonna be doing this again, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So what exactly are sort of the advantages to going on an escorted trip with yourself and Golf Away Tours?
I mean, I feel like it's hassle free for the most part. All those little details, just things like when you get to the airport, and I've done a ton of traveling. You get to the airport, and the first thing you're like, okay, how do I get to the hotel? Right? Do I get a shuttle? Do I have to rent a car? There's some weird person over there trying to coerce me to get into his car. Like you just don't know those little details, but everything like that was taken care of, right? We had people pick us up immediately. There was no waiting around. There was no hassle with any of that. Having the people at the hotel who already knew you was huge, right? Like they already knew we were coming. I feel like the check-in process was barely existed. We just got there and they put us into the villa and off we went. So it's like all those little details. Tea times, you had all of that taken care of, so we didn't have to worry about that. All the restaurants were booked in advance. So the more I think about it, TJ, you kicked ass on this trip because every little thing was taken care of, including the COVID tests, which were a real pain, but they had to be done. But those were all set up, and in the end, those were actually really easy. So it's just all those little details that you don't want to think about when you're on vacation. Just makes it easier.
Well, I appreciate all that, and didn't intend to go that way with the answer. I was, but true to your nature, you're not going to talk at all about yourself and how you add to the trip as well. So maybe I'll speak to that. You were an incredible hostess on the trip, and got to know everybody, and got to be everybody's friend immediately. Made everybody very comfortable. I got feedback from everybody on the trip saying that they just loved getting to know you and feeling very comfortable around you on the trip. So you knocked it out of the park as well and had a great time, and everybody else did as well. So thank you for that. And it just goes to show that this is something that's you're very natural at, and we're gonna do it again.
I honestly didn't do anything, TJ. I had a great time. I tried to keep up with everybody golfing, but yeah, it was fun. And I said at the end of the trip, it's all, when it comes to these things, it's always the people who make the trip, in my opinion, right? Like the resort, everything was amazing, but everybody who came on the trip was awesome and got along, and you need the right vibe, and I think everybody had it. So yeah, outstanding. I had a great time.
Awesome. So yeah, we kind of teased about it a little bit during our chat here, but we're looking at doing this trip again down to Casa de Campo around the same time next year. So sometime probably late November of 22. And we'll be coming out with those details shortly. So you and I will be sharing that with everybody, and hopefully we can get just as good a group going next year and repeat what was a really successful trip.
I think it needs to be a tradition. The resort is too nice not to go back there again, if it's possible. Right? It's amazing.
Well said. Yeah, it's one of the best spots. So thanks again for doing this and for doing the trip. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, TJ.